Welcome into the Alabama Football Report by Chat Sports. My name is Chris Daughtry. Coming up on today's video, we're going to be talking about the disrespect from South Carolina and the way they scheduled Alabama for next season. Also, want to get into some possible transfer portal worries out there. I know my biggest concern with the transfer portal regarding Alabama is the fact that their backups have just absolutely been getting dismantled the past couple of seasons, especially in the past 4 seasons. So we're going to talk about all that on today's video, but let me know here in the comment section, what is your confidence level in this coaching staff? Just overall, that could be the transfer portal, it could be recruiting, it could be also coaching on the field, developing, whatever you want. What is your overall confidence level in this coaching staff? Let me know in the comment section. Scale it for me 1 to 10, 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. All right, first up on today's video, we're going to talk about the disrespect from South Carolina in scheduling Alabama for their homecoming game. Now, this is usually a game that, you go into, you schedule one of those lower level opponents. They could still be SEC, but maybe it's a Kentucky, maybe it's an Arkansas, some team like that. They end up scheduling, really, the schedule's already set for October 25th, but they could have their homecoming whenever they want. There's not a specific date that you have to do homecoming. In South Carolina ends up choosing Alabama for their homecoming game, which is just completely disrespectful to me. Now, this past year's game was a fairly good game. South Carolina, they fight very, very hard for Shane Beamer, and he has brought their program to be pretty respectable here in the past couple of years. Jalen Milroe had a couple interceptions in that game, and really, their defense is just absolutely incredible. So I really did give that to their defense, but it really did come all the way down to the end. You had to get an interception at the end of the game to really solidify a victory in that game. And it was a home game as well. So you really, I think you came into that game like a 9-10 point favorite in that game. So, it's going to be a really big one. I think Alabama needs to go to South Carolina next year and show them why that this is just completely disrespectful. This is what Alabama's SEC schedule looks like for next season. You got Georgia the 4th week of the season. You played them at home this year, so you got to go on the road to Georgia next year. I would assume Kirby Smart is going to have those boys ready to play and get some of their redemption back for the way this season's game went. And you got Vanderbilt, another game that you got to get back. You go to Missouri, not necessarily the hardest place to play, but, Missouri's kind of an up and down program. You never know if they're going to be good. You never know if they're going to be bad. Their quarterback play was not very good this season. Then you have Tennessee at home, South Carolina on the road. Then you've got LSU as well at home, Oklahoma at home, but then it's Kalen DeBoer's first opportunity to go on the road to Jordan-Hare Stadium and take down Auburn. Also, you're out of conference games. Really, these 3 right here are the first 3 games of the season for Alabama. You go to Florida State to open the season. I think that's going to be a really fun game. You never know, I guess, if Florida State's going to be good or if they're going to be bad. They definitely had the talent this year, but I think coaching just, ended up failing that team this year with Mike Norvell. After all the complaining that they did missing the playoffs the year before, they went out and laid an absolute goose egg this season. Then you have Louisiana Monroe in week 2, and then Wisconsin, you played them on the road this season. They end up coming to Bryant-Denny Stadium. You'll get them at home next season, and then Eastern Illinois the weekend before the Auburn game. So let me know here in the comment section, predict Alabama's record in 2025. It is the pinned comment of today's video, so you guys should know what that means by now. That ad most likely going to play right here on YouTube. That's totally fine. You could ignore it. Get down to there to the comment section and let me know your predictions for Alabama's 2025 record. Next up on today's video, Mick Gillespie of Cover Crimson. He is a guy that I worked with in the past. He has been a mentor for me. So when Mick says something, he's always got this little, he looks at things a different way. And he is really concerned about Alabama's ability to keep players in the transfer portal. I think that's a bigger thing than necessarily losing players. But, Alabama's depth in the past couple of years has really got dismantled by the transfer portal. You saw it when Nick Saban retired. You saw it before Nick Saban retired as well. But in the last 2 seasons, it's really become a forefront talking point, and we'll talk about that on the back half of today's show. But first up, I want to give a shout out to our good friends over at Game Time for sponsoring us on today's video. The NFL playoffs are underway, and they've had some really exciting games so far. And you guys can get your tickets easy on Game Time. Game Time has a new feature as well called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Just filters out all the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of seats to find the best value. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to the start of the event. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest prices guaranteed. Whether you want to go to an Alabama basketball game, Willie Nelson's coming to town here in just a couple of months. Yes, that Willie Nelson, he is still alive, he's still kicking, and he's still doing concerts. You can go to concerts, you can go to comedy shows, you can go to theater shows if your girlfriend wants to. Whatever you guys want to do, if you need tickets for it, you will most likely be able to find them on Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and redeem promo code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem promo code CHATSPORTS, that's CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. That link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. So download Game Time today. They have last-minute tickets at the lowest prices, guaranteed. So back to our conversation with Alabama and the transfer portal here. 247 Sports dropped an article the other day listing the top, I believe it was actually top 25 valuations for college football programs right now. And you see Alabama sitting there at number 5. It's really an odd thing to me, considering, you got Greg Byrne coming out here and he's begging the average, everyday Alabama fan to donate to Yay Alabama because you're losing players out of the transfer portal. That happened right after Jalen Mbakwe. You can go on Greg Byrne's Twitter and you can find that is a really, really long tweet. But essentially, he was asking Alabama fans to donate to Yay Alabama. And I'll be honest, I didn't like that look at all, considering that you have a lot of wealthy people who donate to the University of Alabama. You can ask those people to donate to the NIL program, not just the everyday Alabama fan. And you see these top teams right here: Ohio State, Texas, Michigan. Ohio State in the national championship game tonight. Texas just lost in the college football semifinals. Michigan, yeah, they went through a coaching change, a little bit of a down year, but they still beat Ohio State. They still beat you in the bowl game, and they still had a very, very good transfer portal class coming in. You see Alabama right there as well. Notre Dame at 6. They're in the national championship game. Georgia was in the college football playoffs this year. Tennessee was in the college football playoffs this year. Alabama sitting there at number 5. There is no excuse why we continue to see and hear these issues about Alabama, the way I put it, being a poor program. It just doesn't make any sense to me when you see right there their valuation from 247 Sports is almost $1 billion. This is what Mick Gillespie said about Alabama's valuation here. He said, I've always felt like some of that money is not shown up where it should be. The bottom line is these schools can take advantage of the system. That includes Alabama. I think that's what we're seeing right now, obviously with Ohio State. Now, my thing about this is mainly when it comes to your depth. And Alabama hasn't signed the craziest transfer portal classes out there, but they've done a decent job in getting different guys out of the transfer portal. You got Damani Jackson last year. He played a big role in the defense. Also got, a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs out of the transfer portal as well. Jameson Williams out of the transfer portal. You've gotten good guys, but the biggest thing to me is being able to keep a lot of those depth pieces. You see right here, Vern Dumquist. I absolutely love his account. He's also working with him and Clint over there at Cover Crimson, saying this right here. Basically, from 2022 to this most recent transfer portal, class, Alabama has lost 108 players to the transfer portal over the last 4 years. They've only signed 31 players over those last 4 years, making a net total of negative 77 since the 22 transfer portal class. Now, that sounds absolutely wild, but I do think it is important to note here that, when it comes to roster retention, it's just about getting the numbers right. And you also have to remember that you're also signing recruiting classes out there. In the past couple of years, past 4 years, Alabama did also sign 102 recruits in those recruiting classes. 2022, you had 25. 2023, you had 28. 24, you had 28 signed. And then this year's class in 2025, you had 21 players signed. So, you still also have to factor in guys ended up, graduating and also going off to the NFL draft and stuff like that. But my biggest problem here is when it comes to the depth. Alabama's just not able to keep their depth pieces on this team right now. You see a lot of those twos end up going to other schools, and I do think a lot of it really does hurt the development of the players, and that just is not a good thing for college football in general, but especially it's not a good thing for Alabama because once those guys, go off to the NFL draft, you saw this season, this transfer portal cycle anyways, a lot of your starters ended up returning, but a lot of those guys, those twos, you saw Justin Okoronkwo, you saw Damon Payne, Jeremiah Alexander, a lot of those guys that are going to play maybe next year, maybe the year after, they end up going to other places as well. You remember Christian Story last year ends up going to Kentucky. It's like, dude, you were probably going to play. You probably don't go off to the transfer portal and get Keon Sabb if Christian Story sticks around for another year. And I do just think, it's not necessarily just about losing players to the transfer portal. It's which players you're losing to the transfer portal. It's not these guys that are cancers to the team. Sometimes there are guys like that. You remember Billingsley. You remember Agiye Hall, who's now on his fifth team in the past 3 years now. Those guys I'm not worried about at all. But it's those guys that are real big depth pieces for you that just need an extra year or two possibly to develop, to be able to be those shining stars. There's somebody on ESPN the other day. I don't remember if it was Booger McFarland or somebody else. But, he was talking about, the LSUs, the Alabamas, the Georgias. A lot of those depth pieces for you ended up being All-Americans. They ended up being, Heisman contenders once they're, 2-3 years into their career in college. Well, you're not really getting that anymore because those players are hitting the transfer portal after their freshman, after their sophomore season because they're looking to get playing time as a sophomore or as a junior. So let me know here in the comments section, does Alabama have a transfer portal problem? Let me know here in the comments section of today's video. Type Y for yes or N for no in the comments section for me right now. Now, I do think there is another thing that kind of links all this together. It's what Kirk Herbstreit said, I believe it was last week on College Game Day, about, Ohio State getting players and all of this stuff. There's reports out there that Ohio State spent $20 million to get players out of the transfer portal. This is what Kirk Herbstreit said, kind of debunking that. He said there's this perception that they went out and they spent $20 million on players. 9 of their 11 starting defensive players are 3-year starters. They've been there for 3 years and they've lost some tough games. That's what I think is interesting about this team. They brought in Alabama transfer Caleb Downs, who I think is a great player, but that's it. That's the only guy on defense. They brought in backup running back Quinshon Judkins, who hasn't played a ton, which isn't necessarily true. Him and Travion Henderson have about the same exact snap count, or the same amount of rushing anyways. But they got him. He's a good back. And they also brought in Will Howard, and they brought in center from Alabama, Seth McLaughlin, who is hurt. Now, granted, Seth McLaughlin also did kind of, get run out of Tuscaloosa, so it's not like it was very hard for them to go out there and get him. But anyways, the perception is that they went out and bought $20 million worth of players. The reality is they spent $20 million to keep their players, to keep those guys from leaving and going elsewhere. Now, when it comes to Alabama's transfer, or when it comes to their NIL program, I really do respect the way Alabama goes about their NIL program, but it is coming kind of at a cost. You pay some of these big-time players maybe like $250. I believe that was actually the number that Keelan Russell said. He said something about, I can go somewhere else and get $1 million, or I can come to Alabama, get about $250 and turn that into a couple of $1 million. But, at a certain point, you're kind of going to become Dabo, and the way that he's kind of run, that Clemson program the past couple of years and not being able to embrace the transfer portal. It was just this season, I believe, that they signed a player out of the transfer portal that wasn't like a D2 or D3 guy. And you see in the last couple of years, the depth for Clemson has not been very good, and they've been just a simply middle of the pack team. They have definitely gone down in terms of, being one of the top programs in the country. And look, you just have to be able to adapt. And if that means that you have to pay players more, whether or not they're backups or not, I think Alabama just needs to start paying guys more to end up staying here. You got to take that, same approach that Ohio State has taken, because you see where it's taken them. They're able to keep their guys in their program. They're able to develop them. And if it comes at a cost, fine. That's fine. You're one of the top 5 richest programs in the country right now. Don't give me this crap that you can't afford these players. Make sure you guys are subscribed right here to the Alabama Football Report. We are inching closer here to 23.5 thousand subscribers, just 404 away. Do not miss out on any Alabama football news or rumors out there. Hit that sub button for me right now.